Welcome to Is This a Good Metroidvania? Where I review a video game that is a Metroidvania and tell you is it worth playing or not. Today in this episode I will be discussing about Metroid Prime Remastered that came out on the Nintendo Switch, and much like the original GameCube game did for the GameCube, Metroid Prime Remastered features some of the most impressive Switch game graphics. A lot of the old areas has been remade new with better graphics and most importantly, better effects. The wind in Chozo Ruins used to be very noticeable, but now it's more subtle. Snow in the GameCube version looks like bricks falling down, but this one it looks like soft little cotton balls just drifting away. Not that the old game looked bad, in fact to this day it still looks very impressive. The GameCube version ran on a 640 resolution and a 60 frames per second from what I can find. The Switch Remastered version however runs at a 900 resolution when docked and 600 resolution when portable, and both runs at 60 frames per second as well. So why does the Remastered look so good? This is simply because they remade a lot of textures and game models, removing a lot of the janky old models, and a lot of textures are now much more crisp looking. The game has 5 main areas featuring the typical forest, desert, ice and magma land, but looks can be deceiving because while this may appear to be the same old tiring concept of the same type of landscape, Metroid Prime added its own pizzazz to it. You're playing the game in a first person view, letting you experience the world as if it's your own. You get to immerse yourself into the environment, watch as the fauna and floras around you shape the world. This combined with the scan feature lets you play the game as if you're an explorer, discovering a foreign planet, uncovering how life took place and adapted the environment of Talonfall. The scan feature to me is what made the game. A mostly optional system that can enhance the gameplay by letting you find out lore for just about any environment or life. The game lets you know red ones are essential for either progress in the main story or for the full completion of the game, while yellow ones are optional scans. With the scan visor, you can play the main story at service level deep, just save the world and call it a day, or you can find out that you're actually the entrusted one that the ancient Chozos of Talonfall have been waiting for. You are the emissary who will right the failures of the Chozos and clear the blemish of Talonfall. The game also gives you other visors, but they aren't as cool as the scan visor in my opinion. The thermal visor is a sin in this game though. It made the effects super blurry to the point I had to put down the game a few times because it made me felt nauseous with motion sickness. I get that they were trying to make it look cooler, but it just tarnished my experience instead. The thermal visor is also required for extensive periods of time when the space pirate facility's power went out, making the place completely dark where you must put on the thermal visor just to go around. But thank goodness, other than the dark places and finding some hidden power source, the thermal visor isn't required much. Instead, you'll be using your other upgrades to progress. Another small gripe I have with this game is that this game only has 5 major areas, being Talonfall, Chozo Ruins, Magmore Caverns, Pendrana Drift, and the Phazon Mines. Because there are so little areas and the overall world feels pretty small as well, you'll be revisiting the same areas a lot. While this is true to the Metroidvania fashion, revisiting old areas in order to progress to new regions, Metroid Prime instead pads out the game by having you go to a new area, find a roadblock, go back to an old area to get a power up, go back to the new area you were at before, just to use the newly acquired power up from the old area. They did this with the high jump boots, the X-ray visor, and also the plasma beam, to name a few. It felt unnecessarily padded out at times like these, but other than that, these upgrades and the really obscure Chozo artifacts Easter egg hunts, the game does an immaculate job at keeping the tempo, making each step and discovery exciting. The game feels more focused on exploration and puzzle solving, but there is a fair bit of combat to spice things up, and you'll be able to collect new beams to enhance your damage, but unlike older Metroid games, this game doesn't combine all your beams into one. You'll have to swap out beams constantly to get varying effects. So while you won't feel as powerful compared to the older games, it makes combat all the more interesting, unless you are Division Metroids. Then in this case, I damn you to eternal purgatory. But there are 2 bosses who takes advantage of this new system, with the first one being the Omega Pirate. But that's because he spawns specific pirates, and if you try to beat it too fast, you're punished for it, because he'll spawn pirates while he's active, which makes you unable to hit the pirates because he can absorb the beams into his palm. Truly a frustrating moment. The other one is yours truly, Metroid Prime. This fight is the magnum opus of the whole Metroid game. It's a spectacle to the eyes with all the different colors and lights. You are forced to use everything in your arsenal in order to make the experience feel as smooth as possible. But other than the weapon weakness effect, Metroid Prime doesn't feature any tedious or frustrating gameplay mechanics. Or maybe it does. but this fight is just so good. When you defeat the first phase of the fight and he breaks out of his mold, this is where you get a taste of Metroid Prime 3's best mechanic, the Hyper Mode, where you get to shoot a flurry of phase-on power beams at your enemy at Gatling gun fire rate. It really makes this final fight so good. The game essentially gave you a bit of a drug, so you get addicted to the feeling, but takes it all away until Metroid Prime 3. But that's not the end of this fight, because if you get 100% completion, you get a secret ending that hints the story could extend to a sequel. Possibly a Metroid Prime 2. Oh my god, Metroid Prime 2 and maybe even Metroid Prime 3. What would they be called? I'ma call it and say that Metroid Prime 2 will be titled Echoes, and 3 will be Corruption. That sounds like a dream, doesn't it? Perhaps I'd even dare ask for a Metroid Prime 4. Nah, that's just asking for too much now. Metroid Prime itself is still a blast to play in modern day. The game aged like fine wine. For every fault in the game, it's made up with 3 positive things. Metroid Prime Remastered shows that even with a little alteration to the gameplay, if a game is made good, it will play good as long as you don't botch the job terribly. Not mentioning any names, Sonic Colors Ultimate. And so with this, I believe this game is a must play for any Metroidvania enthusiasts. As long as they don't mind the backtracking I mentioned earlier, which is simply a product of its time due to game size limitations.